Malcolm Macdonald was Supermac, an icon built for the 1970s. He had thighs like tree trunks and unbridled power that terrified defences. He scored an incredible 5 goals for England in a single game and was a hero to millions. But while his career is known for goals, it was fundamentally defined by intense conflicts with authority. His unwavering self-belief became a problem. This is the story of 4 football figures who truly hated Malcolm Macdonald. Macdonald wasn't just a player, he was a cultural phenomenon. He arrived at Newcastle in a chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce with the swagger of a gunslinger. His professional journey was a series of ideological battles rooted in his own ego. To understand why so many managers despised him, we need to start at the beginning with the man who created the monster. Joe Harvey was the manager who signed him for a club record £180,000. Harvey wasn't a great tactician. He was a man manager, pure and simple. His first act was to compare Macdonald to the sacred icon Jackie Milburn. This bestowed crushing expectation on the young striker. But Harvey didn't just build him up, he enabled his worst habits. The smoking anecdote tells you everything. Macdonald and Terry Hibbett used to smoke in the dressing room. When a no smoking sign was posted, they threatened not to go out for the second half. Instead of disciplining them, Harvey amended the sign to read, "No smoking, except Terry Hibbett and Malcolm Macdonald." Harvey bent the rules for his star. He showed Macdonald that he was special and above the rules. This created a psychological dependency. Harvey established a golden standard for how Macdonald expected to be treated. From that point on, Macdonald would view any normal manager who didn't bend the rules as antagonistic or incompetent. Harvey set the stage for all future conflicts. He taught Macdonald that the world should revolve around him. Under Harvey's accommodating style, Macdonald flourished beyond anyone's expectations. He scored a hat-trick on his home debut against Liverpool. For 5 seasons, he was unstoppable. The goals flowed freely because Harvey built the entire team around him. Every tactical decision, every training session, every team talk was designed to get the best out of Supermac. The other players knew it, the fans knew it, and most importantly, Macdonald knew it. Harvey understood something fundamental about managing superstars. He knew that a happy, confident Macdonald was worth more than any rigid system or strict discipline. He treated his star differently because his star was different. This wasn't favouritism for the sake of it. It was pragmatic management. If bending the smoking rules meant keeping his best player happy and scoring, then the rules would bend. But this approach had a dangerous side effect. Macdonald began to believe that this special treatment was his right, not a privilege. He started to see himself as bigger than the club, bigger than the system, bigger than any manager. Harvey had created a monster, but it was a monster that scored goals, so nobody complained, at least not while Harvey was still there. In 1975, while Macdonald was on loan in Johannesburg, he received devastating news. Harvey had been sacked. His reaction was one of disbelief and dismay. He couldn't understand how the club could get rid of the man who had built everything. Harvey knew how to build a club, put together a side, and work the transfer market. He wasn't a tactical genius, but he didn't need to be. Harvey's removal wasn't just the loss of a manager, it was the destruction of Macdonald's entire worldview. For 5 years, he had operated in a system designed specifically for him. He had a manager who understood that keeping Supermac happy meant keeping Newcastle successful. Now that safety net was gone, the club had chosen to move in a different direction, and that direction would prove incompatible with everything Macdonald had become. This special treatment from Harvey was the root of the problem. It created a superstar who believed he was above the rules. But what happens when a manager refuses to bend? Let us know in the comments which side you're on, the star player or the manager. And if you enjoy digging into these classic football conflicts, make sure to subscribe for more. When Harvey was sacked, everything changed. His successor was Gordon Lee. Macdonald's reaction was immediate and arrogant. When he heard of the appointment, he said, "Gordon who?" The quote was emblazoned across the back page and set them on an inevitable collision course. They were polar opposites. Lee was a dour, pragmatic manager. His first act was to declare he would have no stars on Tyneside. This was a direct ideological challenge to everything Macdonald represented. From Macdonald's perspective, Lee deliberately undermined him in training. He claimed Lee was absolutely anti him from the start. Lee's philosophy was simple. The team came first, the system came first, the manager's authority came first. Individual brilliance was fine, but only if it served the collective. He had had no interest in building a team around one player, no matter how talented. He wanted 11 players working as a unit, not 10 players serving one superstar. This was a direct attack on everything Macdonald had come to expect. Under Harvey, he had been the sun around which everything else orbited. Under Lee, he was expected to be just another planet. The psychological shock was immense. Macdonald felt that Lee was playing him out of position on purpose. He felt that Lee was assigning him unfamiliar tasks in training to embarrass him. Whether this was true or just Macdonald's perception doesn't really matter. What matters is that he believed it. The relationship reached its lowest point at the 1976 League Cup final. Macdonald made the shocking claim that the team got to Wembley, no thanks to our manager. He called his own manager an idiot who wanted dressing room splits. This was an unbelievable act of public defiance. Imagine a player today saying that about his manager before a cup final. The backlash would be instant and severe. But Macdonald didn't care. In his mind, he was right and Lee was wrong. He genuinely believed that Lee was working against the team's success. He saw himself as the hero fighting against an incompetent manager. He couldn't see that his own ego and his refusal to adapt were the real problems. He had been spoiled by Harvey's special treatment and now saw any normal management as persecution. Despite Macdonald scoring 24 goals that season, Lee sold him. The statistics prove that this wasn't about performance. Macdonald was still one of the most prolific strikers in England, but Lee had no choice but to remove a toxic player who challenged his authority at every turn. Lee's no stars philosophy couldn't coexist with Macdonald's ego. The sale was inevitable. No manager could tolerate such open rebellion. The transfer fee was £333, a record at the time. Arsenal were getting one of the most talented strikers in the country, but they were also getting all the baggage that came with him. Lee must have felt relief. He could finally implement his system without a player who believed he was above it. For Lee, selling Macdonald wasn't about punishing him. It was about survival. But Macdonald got his revenge. In December, Arsenal played Newcastle. Macdonald scored a hat-trick in a 5-3 victory. It was a very public and emphatic act of revenge against the man who dared to challenge him. Fueled by Lee's pre-match comments in the press, Macdonald proved that his talent could succeed anywhere. The message was clear. The problem wasn't him, it was Lee. The conflict with Lee was more than just a personality clash. It was a war for the soul of football itself. It represented the old guard of individual superstars against the new wave of systematic collective football. Lee believed that no single player should be bigger than the team. Macdonald believed that exceptional talent deserved exceptional treatment. Both were right in their own way, but they could never coexist. If the Lee relationship was a slow-burning disaster, the clash with Don Revie was an explosive and brief confrontation. Revie summoned Macdonald to the England squad in 1975, but the welcome was anything but warm. Revie told Macdonald he was only there because the press were demanding it. He threatened that if Macdonald didn't score, he would never pick him again. This was psychological warfare from the start. Revie had built his legendary Leeds team on loyalty and control. He created a family atmosphere where players would do anything for him. But this approach only worked with players who bought into his system completely. Macdonald was an outsider. He hadn't grown up under Revie's methods. He didn't owe Revie anything, and Revie clearly resented that fact. Macdonald scored against West Germany, but Revie repeated the ultimatum before the Cyprus match. He wasn't trying to motivate Macdonald. He was trying to control him through fear. He was trying to show that even Supermac had to bow to his authority. This was a manager trying to control a notoriously difficult ego through psychological warfare, but it backfired spectacularly. Spurred on by Revie's threat, Macdonald scored all 5 goals in a 5-0 victory. This wasn't a team victory, it was a personal and defiant retort to his manager. Before the match, Macdonald had made a pact with teammates Alan Ball, Mick Channon and Alan Hudson. They would help him break the England goal-scoring record, and they did. The scoreboard flashed, "Congratulations, Supermac 5, Cyprus 0. Macdonald spotted Revie heading for the tunnel. He pointed at the board and shouted, "Read that and weep, you bastard." This moment encapsulates everything about Macdonald. Even in his greatest triumph, he made it about his personal war with authority. He couldn't just enjoy enjoy the achievement, he had to weaponize it. In the dressing room, Revie shook everybody's hand but his. This was the only possible response to such a public and personal insult. When Macdonald's challenge was met with brilliance, it undermined Revie's authority. Revie valued loyalty above everything. Macdonald showed him none. His international career was effectively over. Revie's management was built on creating an insular, loyal family. He couldn't manage individuals who weren't part of his established clique. His first interaction with Macdonald wasn't to integrate him, but to isolate and challenge him. Fast forward decades. Macdonald's unchanging footballing philosophy is now clear from his media work. His scathing public critique of Alain Saint-Maximin is the Rosetta Stone to understanding his personality. He called Saint-Maximin the most frustrating player he'd ever seen, a talent who flatters to deceive. Why did he hate Saint-Maximin's style? 3 reasons reveal the gospel of Supermac. First, no end product. Macdonald said a player of his ability ought to be getting a minimum of 12 goals every season. For Macdonald, talent must equal stats. Nothing else matters. Entertainment has no value. Skill has no value. Only goals and assists count. Second, inefficiency. He hated that Saint-Maximin would beat a man and then go back and beat him again. He called it inefficient. He once watched Saint-Maximin make a run across the entire pitch, but not a foot further forward. This was everything Macdonald despised. Football should be direct, purposeful, and efficient. Every touch should move you closer to goal. Anything else is wasting time. Third, it's all about the striker. His view is 100% that of a centre-forward. He said Saint-Maximin's style is no good to a centre-forward. In his mind, a winger's only job is to provide service, quickly and without flourish. He even invoked a story about Alan Shearer confronting David Ginola for not crossing the ball early. The message was clear. Wingers exist to serve strikers, not to entertain crowds. This proves his fundamental footballing identity as that of a finisher. His worldview is so pragmatic that an action is only good if it helps him score. This explains everything. He loved Harvey, who enabled his finishing. He despised Lee, who inhibited it. And he defied Revie, who disrespected it. Everything always came back to Malcolm Macdonald. He wasn't just a number 9 by position. He was a number 9 in his soul. The Saint-Maximin critique reveals that decades after retirement, Macdonald hadn't changed. His philosophy remained rigid and uncompromising. He still judged every player and every action through the lens of a pure striker. This wasn't nostalgia or bitterness. This was genuine belief. In Macdonald's world, football had one purpose: scoring goals. Everything else was secondary. Macdonald's career is a continuous narrative of conflict with authority. He thrived with the enabler, warred with the ideologue, and defied the antagonist. In all these conflicts, Macdonald himself was the constant variable. His brash, supremely confident personality was non-negotiable. The relationships failed because managers like Lee and Revie demanded the star conform to their system, something he was incapable of doing. But his legacy is twofold. He is one of Newcastle's greatest number 9s and the scorer of one of England's most famous hauls. He was a defining personality of his era. His story is a timeless case study in talent, ego, and authority. For some talents, compromise isn't an option, and their path is paved with goals and, inevitably, with grudges.